From Defense Against the Dark Arts to Transfiguration, what really is the best Hogwarts lesson? Of course, it's all subjective, but here are my thoughts from my consideration. I'll be ranking the lessons of Hogwarts by considering how much the subject was enjoyed by Harry, Ron and Hermione, and how useful it was, and also how good the teachers were. So let's begin. Alchemy. According to J.K. Rowling, she imagined this ancient, specialized subject would have been taught to Hogwarts students in their later years. Nicholas Flamel would have been a fan of alchemy, certainly seeing as this is the practice that led to inception of the Philosopher's Stone, but the study of alchemy sounds like a lot of hard graft. Arithmancy. Arithmancy looks terrible, said Harry, picking up a very complicated looking number chart. Oh no, it's wonderful, said Hermione earnestly. It's my favorite subject. Arithmancy was a subject that Hermione enjoyed. It's probably the most difficult subject there is, presided over by the witch Professor Victor. We don't learn a huge amount about this lesson, other than it is somewhere Hermione needs to dash off to become a curse breaker at Gringotts Weasley Bank, if the banking sector was your desired career path. Muggle Studies. As Percy Weasley said, people say Muggle Studies is a soft option, but I personally think wizards should have a full understanding of the non-magical community, particularly if they're thinking of working in close contact with them. Look at my father, he has to deal with Muggle business all the time. Hermione dropped Muggle Studies after passing her exam in the third year with a result of 320%. She was only able to do it with the help of a time turner. In the end, I think Ron might have a point here. Would you really want to study Muggles over magic? Perhaps if you were a curious witch or wizard, it would be different. History of Magic. Easily the most boring lesson with History Magic, which was the only class taught by Gus. Harry Potter and Philosopher's Stone. The dullest subject at Hogwarts was not helped by the fact that it was taught by Professor Beans, someone who had actually died, but still continuing to teach the subject as a ghost. Astronomy. They had to study the night skies through the telescopes every Wednesday and learn the names of different stars and the movements of the planets. The subject was taught by Professor Sinistra. Astronomy is important to us readers for understanding the association of some character names, but in the series, it was one of the least useful subjects. Study of ancient runes. They hurried back down to the Gryffindor common room, which was half empty, and joined Hermione, who was sitting alone reading a book called Ancient Runes Made Easy. Runes is one of the order more likely to be understood by only a small number of people at Hogwarts, but it really came into its own when they decoded the tales of Beedle the Bard, which was left to Hermione in Dumbledore's will. In the end, knowing runes meant that Hermione was able to unlock some of the most important history of the Weasley world. Divination. If you really enjoyed drinking tea, Divination might have come out top. Its biggest problem was its teacher. Why? Professor Sybil Trelawney never shook the impression she initially gave of being a fraud. Peering into crystal balls felt like an annoying waste of time to some. Trelawney had an annoying habit of repeatedly predicting Harry's death as well. She was replaced by Franz the Centaur, who was elusive in his own way. Transfiguration. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts. Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned. Then she changed her desk into a pig and back again. Transfiguration was more demanding than scientific than many of other subjects. Roughly speaking, the larger of subject or being you wanted to transform, the harder work it was. The subject covered everything from switching spells to vanishment, but Transfiguration one mastered opens up a reel of opportunities, from objects to human beings. Anything seems to be possible, as long as you know your stuff properly. Herbology. Herbology, which you might assume would be pretty sedate. Watering and tending plants. What could be more difficult? It was actually quite high street, with its screaming mandrakes and nipping faint grandmies. Plants had an important role in the stories, like the gillyweed which Harry used and breathed under the water during the Triwizard Eternal, and you can't make a Pelagos potion without nutgrass and flaxweed, which means herbology had a huge role in the history. Care of magical creatures. Magical creatures are all over the Harry Potter stories, though Hagrid wasn't the most safely mindful teacher. His love of animals, great, small or brass-ended, helped Ron and Hermione through a variety of hair-raising encounters. Hagrid's love of Aragog wasn't liked by Ron. Hermione worried that the ferocity of the hippogriff might cost Hagrid his job, and Harry had to make up himself to the reason why he could see these trolls. But though it was a struggle, the creatures all had a massive influence on their fate, but sometimes it was much nicer, such as study of unicorn and nifflers. Potions. In the early years, the potions classroom was something of a battleground for Harry and his friends versus Professor Snape. It wasn't much fun, to be honest. By the time the Slughorn took over the 6th year, all the aggravation in the form of melted cauldrons and the outbreak of boils was worth it. A Mortensian-filled Phyllis alone were worth enduring years of Snape's ridicule. And that's before you get to the spells he scrawled in the manuals of advanced potion making, from the Sectum Sempra to the slightly more comical and useful Levicorpus, that Harry accidentally tested out on Ron. Flying lessons. Bit of a curveball rather than a quaffle, perhaps, but what would the Hogwarts students be without flying lessons? Pretty bored, and flying a broomstick seriously had its uses. Numerous Quidditch matches, the first disc of the Triwizard was a tournament, the flight of the 7 Potters, it goes on, and it was fun. Charms. Harry Potter simply wouldn't be Harry Potter without spells and charms. Indeed, Harry's mother Lily was also known to be talented in this area, from Thought Shrinking to Wingardium Leviosa and the Professor Flitwick's Guardians. This subject thought peoples in the very fabric of the Weasley world, and Wingardium Leviosa helped Harry, Ron and Hermione not get obliterated by a giant troll in their very first year, let's not forget. And this was one of many fatal charms that helped guide Harry's adventures. Think about the importance of charms objects too, the invisibility cloak, broomsticks, the interest to Diagon Alley, it goes on. Without charms, the Weasley world just would not be Weasley. Defense against the dark arts. It's a close run thing between charms and defense against the dark arts for the top spot. It did not have the most stable public teacher dynamic, but a new teacher each year was exciting to begin with. When they were very good in the case of Professor Lupin, they were without doubt life-changing, and when they were very bad, Quirrell, Carroll, and Umbridge, the lesson effect taught itself. The spells learned in the class, such as stunning spells or ridiculous, offered ancestral protection, as much as the Cruciatus Curse and Killing Curse were vicious to be used with the utmost discretion. This is before you learn about all the dark creatures, from Bogart to Dementors. The real test of the success of a subject is how nearly students practice it outside the classroom. And when Umbridge deprived her charges of practical learning into the classroom, Harry and friends were more than happy to form Dumbledore's army to teach themselves, as well as resist an increasingly oppressive school regime, a subject that preserved the integrity of the school in the face of the administration, is a worthy number 1 in our minds.